Welcome back to the top-secret dossier of Ryongseong Palace. If Chapter 1 was the story of the sharp blade named Kim Yo-jong, then Chapter 2 will take us to the woman holding the shield of the dynasty, First Lady Risolju. Risolju, the life buoy or the hostage of the dynasty? Pyongyang, a night of torrential rain. In her private room at the central residence, Risolju stood before a large bronze mirror. She did not look at the expensive silk dress she was wearing, but at the faint wrinkles at the corners of her eyes. At the age of over 30, she understood that beauty was the only weapon she had to hold the heart of the supreme leader. But power was what she needed to preserve the lives of her children. Have you ever felt like you were living in a golden dream? But every time you woke up, you realized the bed you were lying on was actually a landmine? The appearance of her daughter Ju-ae in international newspapers throughout 2025 was not her wish. Risolju was smart enough to understand, pushing a child into the light too early is turning her into a target. But she had no right to choose. When Kim Jong-un's health began to show signs of decline, her husband decided to use his daughter as a shield to prevent the rise of other factions, including his sister Yo-jong. The terrifying silences. History will remember the times Risolju disappeared from the public eye for months. Western intelligence called it time for childbirth or being out of favor. But the reality of the inner court was more brutal. Those were periods of house arrest when she accidentally stepped over political boundaries. There is a story that in late 2025, during a private family meeting, Risolju dared to interfere in a personnel decision of the Politburo related to Yo-jong's faction. Yo-jong looked straight into her sister-in-law's eyes and said a cold sentence.
Sister-in-law, you should only worry about choosing the color of the flowers for the dinner party, while the fate of the nation is for those bearing the name Kim to handle.
That sentence was not just a mockery, it was a declaration of war. It reminded Risolju that even if she was the king's wife, she remained an outsider in the Paektu bloodline, the mother's chess game. Entering 2026, Risolju no longer sat still. She began a campaign of living room diplomacy. She utilized her influence to connect with the wives of military generals. In discreet afternoon tea sessions, she did not discuss politics, she only discussed the future of the children. In that way, she created a soft protective network around Ju-ae and the prince in the glass cage. She wanted the generals to understand, under the era of a mother like her, their families would be safe. Under the iron hand of Yo-jong, no one knew whose head the sword would fall upon. If you were a general holding thousands of troops, would you choose a peaceful future promised by a gentle mother, or a reign of purges run by a ruthless aunt? The mask cracks. By April 2026, the atmosphere in the palace became heated with underground calculations. Risolju was no longer the innocent singer. 10 years beside the supreme leader taught her, here, silence is not gold, but a weapon. When Yo-jong launched the strike of killing without seeing blood, raising Ju-ae to the clouds to trap Jong-un, Risolju saw through it all. She understood her sister-in-law did not love Ju-ae. Yo-jong was turning Ju-ae into a human shield, a sacrificial lamb to cover her own regency ambitions. Have you ever wondered about the feeling of a mother seeing her own child turned into a political tool? That is no longer pain, it is fossilized indignation. Risolju began implementing a strategy called the Velvet Fortress. She did not confront Yo-jong directly with decrees. She used what Yo-jong could never have, a mother's empathy. The alliance of forgotten women. In afternoon teas at the Wonsan Villa, Risolju approached the wives of generals in the general staff. She did not talk about missiles or nukes. She talked about the future of the children, about how to protect families before the storms of purges. She sowed a terrifying thought in their hearts. Under Yo-jong's iron hand, their husbands and children could disappear at any time due to the slightest suspicion. But under the protection of a mother of the nation like her, stability and inheritance were the top priorities. This was the battle between fear, Yo-jong, and trust, Risolju. One night in late April, Risolju took a bold action. She secretly met a senior general, a veteran from the Kim Jong-il era. She did not use authority to command. She knelt according to the old ritual and said,
"I am praying not for myself, but for the protection of the last male bloodline of the leader, Prince X."
That act shook even the most iron-like hearts. Risolju was betting her life on the loyalty of the military. Separate from her sister-in-law's control. The poisonous gift. To counter Yo-jong constantly pushing Ju-A before the cameras, Risolju made a checkmate move in psychology. On Yo-jong's birthday, Risolju gave her sister-in-law an exquisite hand-embroidered painting of two phoenixes flying around a sun. But one phoenix had its wings tightly bound by golden threads. When receiving the gift, Yo-jong paused for a moment. The eyes of the two women met. No words were spoken, but the message was delivered.
"I know you want to imprison my child in her own radiance. And I will not let that happen."
Risolju began using her influence to silently change the guards around Ju-A. Those loyal to Yo-jong were gradually replaced by people who owed Risolju a life debt. She was building a ghost army right in the heart of the security apparatus that Yo-jong took pride in controlling. The Midnight Broker. At an isolated villa overlooking the Sea of Japan, where the sound of waves covered every whisper, Risolju conducted a gamble that would mean immediate execution if discovered. She did not meet generals. This time, the person sitting opposite her was a mysterious international intermediary, a Western businessman with deep ties to high-level diplomatic channels. Have you ever wondered what a mother driven to a corner would dare to do? She didn't need money or fame. She needed a life insurance policy for her children. Risolju gave that man a micro-memory card. It contained living proof of the existence of Prince X along with an encrypted message to a third party. She was setting a dead man's switch. If she or her son met any accident, the entire dossier of Kimyojong's cruelty and plots to usurp the throne would be released globally. Risolju no longer wanted to protect the Paektu bloodline blindly. She was using the very survival of the regime to threaten the one trying to steal it. The Banquet of Shadows. Returning to Pyongyang, Risolju faced the X-ray-like gaze of Yo-jong. At a dinner party, the two women were seated next to each other. Yo-jong leaned in, her smile sharp as a razor.
"Sister-in-law, you seem to like the air of Wonsan Beach lately? But be careful, the waves there sometimes wash away things we can never find again."
Risolju calmly picked up a piece of food, her voice still gentle but carrying the weight of 1,000 tons.
"Little sister, the sea can wash away material things. But it never erases the truth. There are things that, the deeper they are buried in the sand, the more clearly they appear when the tide recedes."
At that moment, the surrounding space seemed to freeze. Even Kim Jong-un felt the massive electric charge. He looked at his wife, then his sister, and for the first time, the supreme leader felt like a stranger in his own family. Ju-A's sacrifice. Risolju realized a painful truth. To protect her son, Prince X, she was forced to let Ju-A dive deeper into Yo-jong's line of fire. She began allowing Ju-A to appear in outfits increasingly resembling a true leader. This was the strategy of making a sound in the east to strike in the west. She wanted Yo-jong to pour all jealousy and attacks onto Ju-A, the child who already had the protection of the watching world. While Yo-jong was busy trying to pull down the little princess, Risolju silently consolidated the safety of the prince in the glass cage. If you were Ju-A, how would you feel realizing your mother was turning you into a shield for a sibling whose name you were never allowed to call? This is the tragedy of children born into royalty. You are not a human. You are a position on a chessboard. The Siege. Pyongyang, June 2026. Kim Yo-jong began to realize the cracks in her absolute control. Loyal spies she planted in her sister-in-law's guard detail suddenly resigned or disappeared. They were replaced by new faces. Young soldiers whose families had secretly received help from charity funds sponsored by Risolju. Risolju had silently bought the souls of the palace guards, turning them into living shields who only listened to her. The confrontation in the Rose Garden. A windless afternoon, Yo-jong sought Risolju in the Rose Garden. No cameras, no guards nearby, Only 2 women and roses with sharp thorns.
Sister-in-law, you are playing a very dangerous game. You are trying to build a private army right under my brother's nose. How do you think he will react if he knows his wife is preparing for a rebellion?
Risolju was unfazed.
I am not rebelling. Yo-jong, I am doing what a mother must do when she sees her house threatened by her own relative. If you call protecting my children rebellion, then perhaps you have forgotten the meaning of the word family.
Risolju stepped closer. Her voice low but ice cold.
You have the sword, but I have the shield. And you know, no matter how sharp the sword is, if it keeps striking a steel shield, eventually it will be chipped.
The red list. Risolju's next move was the fatal blow. She knew Yo-jong held the blacklist, names of officials to be purged. In response, Risolju created the red list. It was the list of generals being targeted by Yo-jong. She silently sent warnings to them through her network of wives. Her message was simple.
I know you are in danger. I am the only one who can speak words of leniency to the leader. Stand by my side, and your families will be safe.
Overnight, Risolju turned those trembling before Yo-jong into a secret alliance. She didn't need to hold a gun, she held the lives of those holding the guns. The leader's fear. Amidst the war of the 2 women, Kim Jong-un began to feel ultimate loneliness. In sleepless nights from gout and heart disease, he looked at his wife, who cared for him but whose eyes always hid a plan. Then he thought of his sister, who ran the country with an iron fist but was perhaps waiting for his last breath to take over. In a dictatorial dynasty, love is a luxury the king is never allowed to fully enjoy. Jong-un realized that whoever won this war, he was the loser because he had lost absolute trust in his closest relatives. Risolju understood this. She began the final step of her protection plan. Isolating Yo-jong from Jong-un's heart. Every day, she skillfully reminded him of the hardship and the excessive power of Yo-jong, making Jong-un develop a defensive psychology against his own sister. Risolju knew that as long as she held the heartbeat of this man, she held the upper hand. But if that heart stopped beating, she would have to release her final card. The truth about the prince in the glass cage. Everything is just beginning. Yo-jong, Risolju thought as she heard the clock strike 12 midnight. Thank you for going deep into the darkest corners of Risolju's soul. The woman using gentleness as a cover for a will of steel. Chapter 2 has closed, but the resonance of the battle of the shield and the sword remains, signaling a non-peaceful future for the Kim dynasty. See you in the next chapters.